Damn, that music was really inspirational on that countdown. Did you hear it?
I did. It was like dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun
it's like
dun
I felt
dun
like
dun dun dun. I
I
like
felt
that.
like fucking Rocky over here, like preparing for like a boxing match or something. Okay,
You're up
everybody,
against
what's up?
technology.
This is me, my face. You're used to seeing my face on this channel, Dancing with Ghosts. But to my right, I don't
Oh,
know, on here
I should
we
be
got.
like this. I didn't realize I wasn't really centered up. Here we go. That's much better.
I thought you were a filmmaker, dude. What the fuck?
I look. I'm not going to get into it. When we record Riverside with EJ, both of us are 16:9,
Yeah,
which sounds dirtier than I meant for it to.
that's hot.
But yeah, I see now the way we're cropped. Okay, now this is sharp.
Okay, so anyway, we have Frankie from Red Cow Arcade. Huge fan of his podcast. Many of you will surely know this man from the various videos that he's done on his podcast clip channel about the Slavs, Screenwave, all that stuff. And I think much like your audience, my audience has done the same thing to where you bring them to the party with the AVGN shit, and then they stick around for your original thoughts on things.
Yeah.
And that's happened for my channel, thank God, because before, I mean, I would do random videos here and there that would like do well and get a lot of hits, but it was very inconsistent. It'd be like these huge peaks and valleys where I do a review of Apple products and it's almost at like 500,000 views. Then I do 15 other videos on stuff that I think is interesting that people might like. It gets like 200 views, and that was consistent for the first like fucking 7 years of being on YouTube. And why it persists, I don't know. But then I start doing these Rex Viper videos. It gains more of a people who just stick around for my other shit. Which, and I really, because I keep up with y'all's channel, I really feel like that's definitely happened with y'all.
Yeah, it's certainly been the strategy, and I mean, it's probably the hardest thing to pull off or commit to. It's happened. Like I have the other channel. I've made other content. I'd say the Bimmy commentary has accounted for the biggest influx of new followers in the last few years. But there have been other times where like you were just saying, like where there be some wave of like in 2015, we got some exposure on Reddit. We were on like the front of /r/videos for like a day. And so we got a big influx. And it's similar where there's like some, when you're exposed to the entire internet with your content very suddenly and unexpectedly, there's the majority of the people that you're exposed to hate you.
Yeah.
It becomes your most popular but most downvoted video.
Yeah.
And then there's an attrition period where they go, okay, I actually jive with these people. It's like if you were hopefully your authentic self in whichever video that was, and it tends to not be one that you planned on, then hopefully you're attracting like-minded people, and then they kind of that carries. And until the next time that there's a video that hits a little bit bigger, and then there's another attrition period. So YouTube is all about like the culling of audiences. It's really weird. Like you don't get to in any way, like you have very little influence ultimately over who watches you and why. And so I think when you experience those influxes, you have to commit. You have to kind of remind yourself, because you could very easily just make whatever content you became popular for a minute. And I've said it before about James himself. I always was really impressed that he was able to parlay AVGN into Monster Madness, into Board James, into TMNT movie reviews, into like a network of content. But then he sort of has backslid back into just like, I guess all people want to watch is AVGN.
Yeah, I mean, so my thing is like, and I actually did I did a video recently on Eddie Murphy and his flop solo album that he did. How could it be, or whatever, the album with My Girl Wants to Party All the Time on it. And he said something in an interview when I was doing research about the just the album and all that. He said something in an interview along the lines of, 60 million people saw Beverly Hills Cop, and I figured at least 1 million of those people would buy my record. And he said, sadly, I see that's not the case. And I see kind of with James Rolfe, I feel like the reason why he was able to parlay into all those other things was because the nerd was just such a force of nature, especially in like early to mid, like middle-aged YouTube. He was still even killing. I mean, he still does kill it, honestly. When he puts out a video, it gets millions of plays within a few days. So I mean,
I have a question for you about that. Putting you on the spot, Josh.
Yeah, very serious Frankie face. I don't get to see that very often.
I was having a small debate, a small potatoes debate in my Discord the other day. We were trying to figure out, who do you reckon, like you just said, he'll still see 1 million views regularly for the big videos. Who do you think makes up that demographic predominantly? And the debate was, is it mostly people our age who grew up with him and are just kind of sticking by him out of like habit, obligation? Or is it very low IQ young people who don't know the difference between good content and bad content? Like, I don't know which one it is. Is it both in equal parts, or is one of those groups bigger than the other?
You guys had touched on this on one of your podcast clips or whatever. Oh, by the way, I just want to throw in, much like you and EJ, I also enjoy doing the dishes, and I did that before I jumped on the stream. I was like, I'm an adult, I have to do these dishes now. But no kids for me though yet, or probably ever. There doesn't need to be another iteration of this in the world once I die. But no, so like, as I'm doing the dishes, because I usually listen to you guys, like in my, for my podcast to kill time or whatever. And I'm like, I'm about to talk to this man. Why the fuck? There's no way in some weird, bizarre world that I'm going to listen to Frankie talk to me and then go talk to him. That seems a little psychotic. But anyway,
Fair enough.
Yeah. But
EJ, I'll just interject real quick. EJ's in the chat. I know.
Yeah, I saw that. I feel, dude, I'm kind of nervous right now. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
because EJ's watching us. I know. I get a little like pea shy myself when he's watching me. I don't have the heart to tell him when it's in person, but like right now I'm kind of talking behind his back, being a real shithead. I don't know. I don't know how he has a Dune runtime amount of dishes to do on a nightly basis. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I thought that the other day when I was listening to him, like, he's like, oh yeah, I can bang out this 1.5 hour documentary while doing the dishes. I'm like, dude, how much dishes
like,
do you have?
Dishes. I mean, I get it. He's a cook. He probably puts on a real nice dinner for his whole family, but there's only 4 of them. I don't know if I'm giving away trade secrets. There's only 4 of them. And 2 of them are very small.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. For me, I live alone, so of course it's like a 15-minute task. But I don't know. Maybe he goes in depth with the creams and the souffles and the caked on,
I think
heavily caked on glassware. That can really be a thing. But back to AVGN.
Yeah, sorry.
Now, and I've heard you guys talk about this before on your podcast or whatever. And I thought to myself, I'm like, there's no way in hell Gen Z kids are watching The Angry Video Game Nerd.
You think so? You don't think so?
I don't think so, man. I really don't. I think that it's got to be people our age. There's a lot of.
Are they super dumb?
I think they're just. I don't know, man. I think they're just really. There's a lot of really like well-meaning, sweet people out there who just watch and never comment, or I have people who watch my streams who always just are super nice and supportive, kind of no matter what I do. And just imagine like timesing that number by like 100,000 people. So I mean, I don't know. But then again, you have the runoff, which is the CineMassacre truth, where you have the people who did really like James, and then they were like, fuck this guy, this shit sucks now. And I'm kind of one of those guys, but I'm not as mean, I don't think.
Maybe we can figure this out with real statistics, because our channel analytics are some kind of predictor of who watches his channel, right? Like a smaller sample size. And I think like what I found was for the age brackets in the audience, it's you're right. It is. Yeah. 47% of our audience is 35 to 44 and 37% are 25 to 34. I bet you that's about the breakdown for AVGN.
Yeah, my analytics are without off the top of my head, it's something like 25 to 45-year-olds make up like 70-ish or 60 to 70% of my viewership, and
35 to 45, is that what you said?
25 to 45. So it'd be like,
okay. Oh yeah, sure.
It'd be like 25 to 35 would be 30%, 35 or 36 to 45 would be, 20 or 30%. And then the rest is kind of, 18 and whatever to 18 to 25. So basically, yeah, that's, but I think that's cool though, personally, because I just view it as like, oh, I have a lot of people who are like-minded, like myself. They like pretty much the similar kind of music as me. They, like back when I did my podcast, we'd have advertisers that would reach out to me and they'd be like, what does the average person who listens to your podcast, what kind of shoes do they wear? What shirt are they wearing? What music are they listening? It's like, I don't fucking know. Like, but now, like with now I have more viewers and better analytics on YouTube. I can answer that question probably. They're probably in their mid-30s. They probably like, alternative rock music. They probably have some kind of, connection with playing, retro video games to some extent. It's just a bunch of people like me. The shit that I'm into is who I've, I guess, attracted. And then the people who don't like me or my aesthetic or whatever, they just, they can't bear to watch me with that fucking hair and that fucking piercing.
I do want to talk about that. I have questions for you about that, but we were chatting the other day. Jason, who's been on the show, you've seen him. He has a great channel, Jason Graves, and he was saying it's mostly SNES RPG reviews and that sort of thing. But he was going, sometimes we'll get in these kind of heady discussions about analytics where we're trying to understand. Like I tend to look at the like ratio when I release a new video. I find certain points of the day interesting for what the like ratio is. Like right when I upload, I find that the dislikes, like people, there's a small group of people that hammer the dislike right off the bat, right in the first hour.
Really?
And then actually the likes climb as the day goes. Yeah. So there's like kind of like a reflexive hate watch. And I think some of those might be bots actually, because sometimes they go away. But anyway, I just like to know over the course of a 2-day period. Normally they're not like, unless we have a real hot take or a real L take. Generally they're all well liked. The people that are watching for a reason, but sometimes it's like a 94% and sometimes it's like a 98%. Sometimes it's 93%. And I just like to know. And Jason was like, don't think about that. Cause like the like button is just an agree button. And so if, and I was like, well, that's a good point. And I kind of do want to know, like, does my audience agree with me? That doesn't mean that I'm going to like, oh crap, I better pivot to something they do agree with. In fact, I get a little delight from talking about things that they disagree with.
Sure.
But I still like to know whether or not they do. I like to know whether or not, like, are we simpatico? It's like you were just saying, it's like, in theory, you're like is attracting like, but sometimes not. I mean, I have found that, because we attracted everybody through this James commentary, as it turns out, there is not one type of person that's interested and intrigued and critical of James Rolfe. It's many, many different kinds of people. So as we released more videos and as we were like talking about weed addiction or parenting or philosophy or about our views on a lot of new entertainment, then there's like another attrition period where people are like, oh, you don't like new Star Wars? Fuck you, or whatever it might be. So yeah. But it's true. It's an agree button, isn't it? It's not like I just appreciated the discussion. It tends to be the like button is an agree or disagree.
Yeah. I remember, not quite getting ratioed, but like close on the Pat the NES Punk video I did. Cause I guess like Pat hasn't done anything that disagreeable yet for people to be like, yes, he warrants a video where he gets shat upon. But like, I wasn't even like necessarily shitting on the guy. I just wanted to make because like he did some things that like got on my nerves. Yeah. And it's like, dude, my channel, I'm like 12,000 subscribers. Like, calm down. Like I'm not a big tastemaker here that's going to have trolls waiting outside of his house, threatening him. It's like, I'm just some dude who has opinions, right? Like all of us who make YouTube videos.
Yeah. That's a great point. Like I feel the same way, which is because we only bring in so much viewership. The harm we can do is probably not as great. We talked about this recently with like this James Somerton thing and this H Bomber guy plagiarism thing where it was like, of course those targets were it was righteous to go after these guys who were plagiarizing. But at the same time, it was like, but if it's going to be shown to 17 million people,
right. Exactly.
Maybe just like pause. Cause you could actually you could cause a shitstorm that you don't even mean to cause.
Yeah.
We can't really cause as much of a shitstorm. And yet, in the world of James Rolfe, I seem to have made a splash.
You have. You really have
to do.
I made a secondary little pebble of a splash, but you guys made the initial Like I hadn't even gone to those. I didn't use Reddit for anything before any of this happened. And then I go in there and I'd be doing a live stream and someone would be like, man, I commend you for still making all this AVGN stuff despite all the memes that they're making about you in the truth forum. And I'm like, what? I didn't know anything. So I went in there. I'm like, man, these guys are just fucking me in all holes, man. Like,
yeah. So that was December, January. It was right. So you had, by that point, you had made, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 Rex Viper videos and maybe a few AVGN commentary videos. Like you did a year in review in 2022. And then you did year in review in 2023. And it was the year in review of 2023 that they lost all tolerance for you.
Oh, no, actually what was, I think I was, it was on a live stream, I think. Isn't that how every controversy starts? It was on a live stream.
Oh, it was. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I said something to the extent of like, man, those guys are kind of jerks to me, or they were too hard on me, or
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, I said something along those, and that's what made them say, fuck this guy. Like that we turn against him. He is no longer someone whose content should be, posted in here and celebrated or whatever. And I don't give a shit. I mean, a lot of the people who found me from that subreddit have stayed, and
yeah, right. Well, that's the attrition I'm talking about. Yeah. So when that whole thing happened, I found it kind of interesting because there already was a brace for impact. I mean, Reddit in general, forget the CineMassacre Truth. Reddit, I remember like anytime our stuff has shown up on Reddit, that's a population of people who, first of all, the platform itself is anti self-promotion. So just the idea that like posting a video could help somebody, people are already kind of chafing against that.
Yeah,
like, not help anybody. Like if you try to post a video on various subreddits, you're likely to have it taken down for self-promotion or for breaking policy. And if somebody else posts it in good faith, they're likely to rip it apart. It's kind of a bit of a monoculture over there too. I mean, it's the same. It's a lot of people on Reddit are cut from the same.
Frankie,
cloth.
can I just say you're like one of the smartest people on YouTube? I think all the words you fucking use.
What did I use a big one? Just
monoculture. I've never, and I think
monoculture
amongst my friends, like I feel like I have like a pretty big vocabulary, but then I listen to you and I'm like, fuck, why don't I implement those kind of words in my conversations?
You have it, Josh. You have the intellect. So they're already anti helping people out. And so when our stuff went up, we were, I guess, lucky in as much as they didn't push back against it. I saw a post recently where it was some kind of like, hey, don't you hate all of this commentary on YouTube about James Rolfe from Lady Emily? I always get her mixed up with Lady Decade, which is
she did that like a 2-hour or a 3-hour video about like all the issues people have with AVGN. I remember seeing that one.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that video. I sort of am. I remember I was like, I ran like a 10-miler while listening to it. So I didn't watch it. I listened to it like a podcast.
Dude, you ran 10 miles? That's a lot of cardio. Holy shit.
It was. Well, that was during the big weight loss time, like the big push. Okay. Yeah, that was like 0 to 100 or 280 to 150.
What speed were you on?
So I've lost some of the fitness that I gained during that time. As I've relaxed into a routine, but during that time, so late 2021, 2022, I could run a half marathon, 13 miles. I did. There's a video on the main channel where I did this at a 7:14 pace. So 7 minutes and 14 seconds, which is actually really like in that particular race. I think I was like 12th overall or something. This is pretty quick. Like you have to have a very high level of fitness to do that. And yet, if you want to qualify for the Boston Marathon at my age, the marathon's 26 miles, double. I think your pace is like, it has to be like 7:04. It's fucking crazy. It's like professional athlete just to run the race. It's insane.
Just, dude, be glad that you never acquired a taste for alcohol, because running on the treadmill the next day after drinking is, it sucks. I feel like Krusty a Clown, wake up, I gotta get on the treadmill. God, give me a drink.
I have to run on the treadmill.
Damn, you do a pretty good Krusty.
14 Shamulias. So anyway, yeah, there was some post that was like, don't you hate all these clout chasers? So there's this like real aversion to like maybe somebody's clout chasing. And we kind of skirted by. There was always this kind of, I don't know, call it like a 30%, 25% or something. That always was like, fuck those guys. For one time they said something I disagree with. Fuck them forever. But generally we were kind of well received. And I noticed that they weren't really posting about you like you'd put up a big Rex Viper video. I saw your first, like one of your first Rex Viper videos before I even met you. But they never really posted about you. And I always thought it was strange that there was all that much of an aversion to the YouTube community around the criticism of CineMassacre, because doesn't that kind of fuel it? Doesn't that kind of drive traffic to the subreddit? Isn't that part of the community aspect of laughing and talking about this stuff? Isn't that what Monster Madness of the assholish variety is all about? I think it's strange to be like text only, no multimedia. I think it's odd, but I also get it. You know, like there was a bit of a gold rush that I think we predated by 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Which helps. And you know, like the credibility of the shorts and everything, maybe that helps. But anyway, it was when you did this, here's my theory for why they started to get a bad taste in their mouth. That video, you were talking in broad strokes about the channel. So you were going like, I don't know, he's doing neighbor nerds with some guy that he just met. So his friend Tony or some shit. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I never watched this show. And to be honest with you, I never watched that show. And I think they were looking for you to be like a more invested party in the content. And so, and when you were like pushed away from it, I think they were like, he's just making this video to rake it in, or you know, it's been a while since he's gotten views or something like that. We've been accused of that too. Like, oh, it's time to do James again. It's so much so I've had to stifle. EJ and I have very affirmatively decided like we're not, unless it's something big, unless there's another plagiarism scandal.
I noticed that about y'all's channel, and like I even, and here's some behind the scenes inside baseball for the viewers out there. I was gonna include Frankie on the top my top 11 favorite AVGN segments. Frankie could have gotten a piece of that hot action, and he said, nay, that is too hot for me. And I said, all right, then I'm gonna soldier on by myself. And I
like the video. I enjoyed it. As a fan, it was nice to be a fan. I got to watch the video. I will never stop being interested in James Rolfe. You can't. I was saying this today. Yeah. Kevin Smith recently, who we've talked about on our channel, he recently announced that he finished his next movie, his 16th movie. And we were all talking about him and his fandom and where did he go wrong and when did he become less authentic and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? You can take this to the bank. I'm never going to stop being interested in Kevin Smith, James Rolfe, or Star Wars. It's not going to happen. I'm an invested party. So if you ask me, why are you talking about The Acolyte and why it sucks? If you're asking me, why are you watching Obi-Wan or Star Wars, James Rolfe, Kevin Smith, I'm here to stay.
I'm like that with like a lot of bands. Like I will always like get a hopeful erection whenever the Smashing Pumpkins tease a new album, because I'm like, maybe this one won't suck. Maybe this one, because they did such great work in the 90s to the 2000s. Maybe the next album is a return to form, you know, because Billy Corgan is constantly, you know, evolving his sound and changing. He's always trying to shock people with some crazy, you know, I'm going to make a 70s synthesizer sounding album with like barely any electric guitars, where that's what the band's known for. So yeah, I have that. It is a lot of times it's with bands. I would say James is like I said in one of my videos I made, it's like a Pavlovian response whenever I see he releases a new nerd video, where I just feel like, well, I have to watch this. It's not even that I have certain people I subscribe to when they put out a new video, like Todd in the Shadows. I'm like, yes, a new Todd in the Shadows video. And I'm looking forward to it, or Porcelain or Beige Frequency. And
Todd in the Shadows is kind of event. That's like event YouTube, because that doesn't come every day. Right.
Yeah. So if he did like a Train Records, although I will say the last one he did on Faith Hill's album, I forget the name of it. I felt like it was a pretty mid Train Record episode for Todd. But you know, either way, I'm excited to see when his videos pop up. When a new angry video game nerd pops up, I'm just like, he put a new one out. I guess I'll give this one a look and see if there's anything to be had at all. And I'm watching, and I'm just like, God, I've seen the same thing fucking over 200 times now. And it's just like the same shtick. But you know, when I did my top 10 favorite AVGN episodes, or 11 or whatever AVGN episodes, I was genuinely laughing. I was genuinely enjoying like the videos, and I'm like, where did this go? Whatever this X factor is, this youthful exuberance and this like this that slight Jersey accent he had, and it's the ass, in the early days that he's kind of lost now, and
shove it up your ass.
Yeah, it's like,
totally.
what happened to that guy? And you just like, as I went through, because like I think my last like favorite episode I enjoyed from him was like in 2017, the Polybius episode.
Oh, yeah.
That was like the last one where I was like, that I felt was like pretty good, like worth watching. And literally after that, it's just been like a slog, just a downhill kind of like, Krusty the Clown again. I gotta watch this fucking video so I can make a video and make $1 million.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I remember, for me, I believe I watched a bunch in a row I didn't like, but I didn't realize I wasn't liking them. I was just watching them. I was just consuming them. And then it was a friend of mine who said, like, I think it was the Pepsi Man one. He was like, "Do you realize he didn't edit that?" And I was like, and as an editor, I was like, what? I was very interested. I was like, wait, who's editing for him? And he's like, those guys that he hired to be his friends. And I was like, no. Of course, now I have my own slob, so it's a very different world.
I know. Yeah, we were actually going to we were going to talk about that. So, dude, I listen to a lot of your shit, so I kind of know a lot of like anything that you've ever committed to a microphone on the Red Cow thing, I've probably heard or know about. But you said on one of your podcasts, like you sent them like a document or something, like a PDF of like very specific guidelines on how to edit and all that. So like, let's go a little bit into like, what are Frankie's guidelines? What if Josh I wouldn't, because I don't have the time. Again, as we've said before, it is okay to not have time to do something. But when it becomes that fucking meme that lost its funniness like a long time ago, it just gets old. But if I were to do it though, what kind of guidelines are we looking at here?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, did you see that Scott Lawaz interviews James video? Did you see that?
I didn't see the actual video. I saw y'all's coverage on it.
So you saw the important.
And I always wondered what I didn't like about Scott's face in that jaw and how he kind of talks with that lazy.
Oh, yeah, EJ figured that out.
Yeah,
EJ was like, I don't want to watch his lips not move, because I think EJ edited that one. He's
like, and I'm like, yeah, I did notice that he does do that, and that always fucking annoyed me. Yeah, go ahead. I saw it.
No, it's all good. There's a part of that video where Scott starts asking James. He's like, so how does it work? Do you use Google Drive or like files? And James is like, yeah, like we were doing hard drives, and then we did like online. We used the internet. I was like, what is this conversation? So I think basically that's what you're asking me now. You're like, so is it online? Is it the internet? What? No, but obviously you're asking a more in-depth question. So yeah, I didn't know. If I zoom out a little bit, right? So I've been making content for decades, and I always edited my own shit. Sometimes people ask, they'll be like, do you like when EJ makes a video, like his standalone videos, are you involved in that at all? I'm like, not whatsoever. They're like, do you give notes? I'm like, nope. We've been working together for 12 years or something. And he has very much his own style, which I'm a fan of. And so I just enjoy watching his stuff, like everybody else does. And so, but the point is that like, when it comes to post-production, I've never really collaborated with people before. Not really. In my early days, John Hunt from, the main channel there, he would do like our audio mixing, or he's actually the one who kind of like helped teach me how to edit in the first place. He was like a really technically proficient person in my little town, like one of the only ones. And that was one of the first things that kind of like brought us together, was like two like AV guys. It was really cool. But I would just always do my own thing. And then as you accumulate, I imagine it's like music. As you accumulate tens of thousands of hours of practice, you become extremely particular about the ways that you're doing ththings. And so certainly for narrative feature films, I don't think I'd ever shop that out. I think like the editing of those, especially like the narrative, right, where you're the one who shot all of the coverage in a way that you can understand, like you shoot it to edit it. So, like you're imagining yourself in post-production literally while you're shooting it. So it's very hard to I think for me in that indie filmmaking style to involve somebody after the fact. Then we do like box mac and web series and that sort of, blog type stuff. And you might think like, well, come on, somebody can do that easily. Then box mac took on its own kind of like style and life. In fact, there was an episode, I want to say like 60 or something, where John joked. He was like, I should edit one. John's loved John to death. He was a very lazy man. And so it never was on the table that he was going to help out and edit stuff, but just for kicks, we had him edit once. It took him a long time. He got it done. And then I did my cut, and they're very, I think they're off by like 4 minutes. Like I cut 4 more minutes out than he did. I cut a lot of breath. I try to, especially for like a comedy show like that, I really try to shape the timing. So and I try to give a sense of continuity. And because you have 2 camera angles, we have a wide and we have like the main EJ camera. The way that those 2 interplay plus the B roll has to feel like, you kind of want it to feel like there's no cuts, even though it's cutting every 3 or 4 seconds. It's meant to feel much like a narrative film is. It's meant to have the illusion of like continuous motion. So I got really attached to editing those. And even as I edit, like I recently did this, I don't know if you saw like this wrestling video that we did of box mac. That was a big thing. It turned into a huge thing. And I couldn't imagine shopping that out, but all along I'm releasing these podcast clips. And when we first started doing the podcast clips, it was really just in and out points. It was just like, just run through it, figure out like, I talk about Star Wars here and here and just release it. And that'll be like an advertisement for the Patreon version of it, the full Patreon version. And then before long, you're like, well, I should probably run 10 seconds of opening, some visual, something that signifies what the video is about, so that if it auto plays on YouTube, they get a little taste of that.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And then it was like, oh, well, normally when we change topics, we're doing a lot of ums and ahs, and we're kind of stumbling our way into the topic for the first time. So you can use that overlay to kind of cover up the ums and ahs and get into the video a little bit quicker. Oh, okay. And before long, you're editing a deluxe clip. You're making like a video essay that you didn't mean to make.
When I was on y'all's podcast, you edited me to sound like the most hateful, racist Florida man. I was outraged when I saw the final edit.
We shaped a caricature of you.
Yeah, you built a narrative that I haven't been able to shake. And it's
sorry, media manipulation. Did you see that when you upload on YouTube now, it says like there's like a little like series of questions that says, are you representing something as true that is not true?
I've not
questions about like, are you lying?
I've not seen that but I've read about it, which is weird because I upload videos all the fucking time. I guess it's brand spanking new, but yeah, I read about it in this news magazine that I read when I'm taking a shit. And I guess it's to, I guess, inform the viewer that something was AI generated. So like if basically they're trying to like inform you if something is like a deep fake. And that's the purpose of those questions. They don't care if you're using AI, like say to create an image that's so outlandish that nobody would believe that it's real, or they're using AI to like change the color of a shirt or something like that. They don't care about that. But if you, cause like they developed this, new program that utilizes ChatGPT, but it's like a video rendering program using AI, and they released some video apparently recently of these 2 people walking down the street of like Tokyo or something like that, and it looked very much real. And upon first glance, you wouldn't know that it was computer. Now, if you pause it, track through each shot, you can see, fucked up AI shit. Like the AI is usually pretty bad with like text on buildings and stuff like that. It usually like bungles that. But yeah, it was apparently it was like freakishly accurate. And so, they're talking about the future of like deep fakes, using that for political, nefariousness. Like you make an AI generated video of someone getting beheaded, and you say, oh, like this group claims responsibility for it when the event actually didn't even happen, or like a AI generated, mass shooting that didn't actually happen, but it gets out there and people believe it because it looks real, and then it starts a whole lot of shit.
I just saw there on ftc.gov just today. There's a or not just today. I saw it today, but it was published February 15th that the FTC is proposing new protections to combat AI impersonation of individuals. And so there's like, it's a list of things like, you know, if you impersonate somebody in email, there's new penalties that could be levied if they actually find who did it. But it's really trying to stop things like voice impersonation and video impersonation in their tracks. You could imagine, at least in, I don't know, maybe in some states, but this is federal. You could imagine that there might be a move really soon to just be, yeah, you know, voice impersonation, it's not allowed. Just straight up. Like, you can't do that. Sorry. You know.
I mean, the stuff that even that like the CineMassacre Truth Form used to like transmorph your James's voice onto your cadences, like that shit's entertaining. So like I don't know, like, but then
artistic use.
Yeah, on the other end of the spectrum, you have Joe Biden giving these robocalls where it's an AI generated voice where he said something like, stay home on November 4th. The voting machines are a bunch of malarkey. I have searched on YouTube for that audio clip and I've not been able to find it, but I want to hear that AI generated Joe Biden saying it's a bunch of malarkey.
It's a bunch of malarkey. You know, to stay home.
Say all those voting machines. A bunch of malarkey.
On November 4th, I want you to stay home. So yeah, so it was one of our friends in Discord came to me and said, hey, like I'm looking at, he wanted to make a movie in the near future. And he's like, I'd like some post-production experience. And, you know, the clips look easy. You could probably farm that out to me, right? And by this point, I already had convinced myself. I was like, well, there's a lot involved and I have to add in a lot. Because what inevitably happens is we talk about something that
and then you add
not everybody has.
Yeah,
not everybody has an awareness of, or they don't, like, we're describing a visual that it just would be helpful to present the visual or present the reference or something. And so inevitably, like, you do one or two of those, and you just want to end up doing all of them. And then the videos where I put in a lot of extra editing effort, it's, you know, I wouldn't say that they performed any better, first of all. So YouTube doesn't really reward like high effort stuff. But I would say that the reception to them was better. Like, people really engaged with the content more. It kind of it elevated the reputation of the channel to make better content, you know, frankly.
Oh, I've seen the growth of how you started out initially with the clips, and you barely, if at all, put anything in there. And now it's evolved to where they're super entertaining. It's almost like, and no offense, but it's almost like kind of a bummer sometimes listening to the podcast, because it's like, damn it, I know he would have put a clip here that would have referenced what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And, you know, on the podcast, it's just, you know, but what's nice about the podcast is, you know, if I'm doing something for a long time, I don't have to worry about that's Red Cow Arcade. You know, I can listen to the whole thing for a long period of time without being interrupted. But the clips, though, have gotten very involved. And I guess one of my things I'm wondering is, like, in your guidelines, for instance, say you mention this, say you mentioned Bill Burr being in Breaking Bad. You would go and source that clip yourself, and then you would put it into the editing software or whatever. So if you farm out something like that to one of your slobs, do they have to go find their own clip, or are you like, here's the clips, here's the everything, you just have to edit it? Or do they have to
so it's that's a very good question, because it's a challenge. Because there's times where I'm referencing something very specific that I like. Not only may I be the only one who even knows what I'm talking about, which I guess now that I say it out loud, is an indicator that, like, maybe it's not great for mass consumption if I'm literally the only one who knows what the fuck I'm talking about. Although that makes it that much more enjoyable to display it or to cut to it on, you know, because you're introducing people to stuff. But yeah, not only might I be the only one who knows, but often I'm the only one who even has a copy of that media. Like, I can't find it online. I happen to have like a physical disc of it. I got to go rip the disc of it just to get the clip. So there are times where I know that that's going to be the case. And I still edit some of them. And normally I edit one per batch. So we record a 2-hour podcast, let's say hour and 45, something like that. It goes up on late Thursday night. To come down here, EJ and I record, we throw it up as an audio clip on Patreon, $2 for the patrons. And then and they also get the video, link to the full video pod. EJ then goes and time codes it all out in a spreadsheet. And so he says, like, you know, and which is really nice because he also, by doing that, he also time codes it in the video itself. So the podcast listeners can skip a section that has spoilers, let's say, or whatever. They kind of know what we're talking about. So, because before we weren't doing timestamps on the full videos. So he does that now. And then in the spreadsheet, all of this, we have a channel in our Discord called Slobs, you know, like pound slobs. And so you might, I was going to tell you how we accumulated these slobs. I think after talking about like the Scott the Woz video and talking, you know, we talked about it on the podcast. Like, hey, I could really use some help to make these if we're going to keep the level of production as high as it is. And it was when the first guy asked that I said, this might actually be an opportunity for me to, like, I got to figure out a way to get some of this work off my plate because I'm trying to edit for 2 channels. I got a kid, you know, I get you, James Rolfe. I get you. So, you know, I have a full-time job too. Like I it's not appropriate to talk about like my employment and stuff, but it's a very demanding all fucking day job. Like all of this YouTube stuff that we do is all extracurricular, and sleep deprivation is the way to solve. You know, I edit from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. most nights, so I get like 2 hours, and that is often like wife time too, and I don't really get to, like, so, you know, we'll decide like, okay, this is editing night. There's sacrifices to doing it. So I thought this would be a great opportunity, and I sat down and I wrote out a document called editing standards. I guess I'll summarize it. You know, first it's like instructions on how to retrieve the video from where we upload it to. Then there's creative standards. So I say we require that you edit with Adobe Premiere. Clips typically run 7 to 25 minutes. They probably shouldn't be shorter than 7 minutes unless they're truly unique or special. Like we just put out like an Easter one. It was about Easter. It was short. It was okay. When we say something stupid, like losing our train of thought or going down, barking up a tree, we shouldn't be barking up, cut it out. If we come out of a clip and we're umming and ahhing, cut those down. But we also say, like, don't over engineer it. Don't cut out all the breaths and all the ums and ahs, because then it's unsustainable. Like, we'll never get clips out if you do that, if you try to make it perfect. Occasionally we'll choose a video, like when Jason came on to talk about Sega Genesis, that was like a very like produced video, and then we go the extra mile with it, but normally we don't do that. There's standards for like when if you download a 4x3 video, like some like legacy media, one of our standards is that you have it be black bars on the left and right. Some people might blur it, or they might, use some
I have a
other
little
background
graphic that I used whenever I have to do that. And it's a pain in the ass too, because the 4x3, for whatever reason, that aspect ratio, when I throw it onto my 16:9 project and I use the background at the top of the video, there's always just a little thin line of space. So I have to scale the video up to 101% to where it's just a little bit bigger. And that's how OCD I get when I start editing. And like you mentioned, the breaths and all that, like I edit that shit out. I make it to where it's slicker than a Yes record, man. Whenever,
I think your stuff is nice and like really well produced. Like, I think you separate yourself from the pack really easily with good timing, good rhythm, nice lighting, everything that's kind of that you would need to just kind of have a little bit of credibility on YouTube.
It took me fucking years to like slowly pick up these pieces one thing at a time. Like for a while, my sound quality was shit because I was using one of those Rode mics that everyone suggested, all the YouTubers were using at the time, and that you just like mount them to like the top of your DSLR, and it sounded like shit. And there was like this high pitched like I don't know what, like 3,000 at the 3,000 band frequency, there was like a hiss, and it just the mic was ass, but everyone used them back in the day. And so then I just started using this. This used to be just my voiceover mic. So you'd have this echoey room sound when I'm in front of the camera, and then it's a slick sound when I go to doing voiceovers. And it's just like, why don't I just get
that was almost like a style of early YouTube.
That was it. Yeah, it was the James
that's the James Rolfe.
Yeah, for sure. So that became Josh's style too.
What about Chris Boers when he would ADR himself? He didn't want to have that disparity of the sound, like the spatial sound stuff. So he would ADR with the voiceover mic. He'd be like, "What a shitload of ass," like using some.
I don't understand. Anybody attempts to do ADR on YouTube, I'm just like, bro, it's just YouTube. Like, you know, like I don't know if that's completely necessary.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah,
Unless
like
you shouldn't need it anymore with this Adobe enhancer thing. It's fucking
yeah,
crazy.
dude, I'm so pissed that I'm so mad that I followed James so closely when I was growing up that I even bought all the same shit he used in that first behind the making of a nerd episode, the first one he did back in like 2010.
Right. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was actually useful to me.
Although there is stupid shit in there. You know what?
Really?
That's a good idea for a video. Go back to, because that's a pretty, like, I like that video. I enjoy it, like whatever. But when you brought it up, here's what flashed in my mind the minute I suddenly, you know, it was like a Terrence Malick film. Like I suddenly was in another dimension thinking about Final Cut 7, because he was editing in Final Cut 7. And he said, he was like, what I do is I record all the game footage for the games. And then it was something like, I have to like,
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
You mentioned this on a podcast, and I wanted to fucking I wanted to chime in because I knew exactly where you're going, because I remember not knowing anything about video editing and even thinking that can't be. So what he said he did was he would have the video game footage, and he said a lot of games have sound test menus in the options. And so oftentimes what I'll do is if there's a punching sound, I'll just hit the button in the sound, because like a lot of video games did have, for whatever reason, like in the options menu, you could scroll through and it was like all the sounds that were used in the game. So if it was like a, you know, punch sound, he would just hit the button so he would get that little sample, and he would put that in over the game footage, you know, to, I guess, like Foley or whatever, to, because if something didn't record right. It was that what you were going to mention?
Yeah, and now you got me wondering why did he do that?
Yeah,
why not? So obviously the easy efficient thing would be to just record the sound with, you know, live with the video
maybe like direct or game capture back in 2000, because we take all that shit for granted now, but back in the day, it was really the Wild West. Like there were a million different ways you could kind of do it, you know. But no, I'm pissed because, like, as I watched that video, it showed me that, oh, there is a pathway for me to be a YouTuber myself, because this doesn't look impossible. This doesn't look outside of the realm of my skill, because I was already editing songs on my digital audio workstation. So a lot of the editing shit he would do, I'm like, well, dude, I already do stuff like that on Fruity Loops. Well, FL Studio is what it's officially called. But so
that makes perfect sense. Like if you're already like a sound editor, it's like, well, why couldn't I make video content, right?
Which is funny because all my sound and most of my videos sound like shit for the first like 7 or 8 years on YouTube. But you know, live and learn. So he goes through all the gear he uses, and he's like, you know, and what do I edit on? Final Cut, you know, because blah blah blah. I guess because he was like big into like Apple at the time or whatever.
I'm a Mac guy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I brought it out on one of the Red Cow podcast clips I was featured on. I showed EJ and Frankie that I even have James Rolfe's fucking, not James's, it's my own copy, the Panasonic HVX 1000 or whatever, the original broadcast looking ass camera that he used to use. I bought that same exact one because like I didn't want there to be any reason outside of my content just not being good that you know, he would have an advantage over me, because I thought, well, surely if I have all the technology that he has, and you know, I'm pretty funny, or so I thought back in the day. I was like, surely there'll be nothing will stop me now. And then I realized that's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get following and people to fuck with you on YouTube than just having all the gear. But with all that to say that I'm so pissed that Final Cut is what I've learned editing on, because Adobe Premiere, oh my God, from the plugins and all the shit you can do with After Effects, like implementing all Adobe's programs, like implement with each other in some way or another. And like I had a pirated Adobe suite for a while, and then Windows got wise to it, or Adobe got wise to it, and they made them all trial versions or whatever. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I should have admitted that, but we're live, baby, so it don't matter now. But
listen to Jason Graves simping for James in there. You guys meme James, but in like 2008, every video game soundtrack wasn't on YouTube, so that might have been useful then. Maybe Jay. That's my point. Point is that there's no sense in editing the audio clip. Like why are we syncing the sound effects to the game footage when theoretically the game? Oh, is it? Oh, I know why. All right, fine. It's because he sometimes wants to have isolated sound effects like punches and jumps separated from the music, because sometimes you wouldn't want the music to combat to compete with the narration. All right, fine. You get away with it this time, James.
Jeez, that's
I doubt that they still do that.
that is a very
Super Anthony says yes. Jason is right. Yeah.
That's a
so
very convoluted way of doing that. But anyway,
yeah, I still think it's convoluted, and I remember from that video there's a lot of like time codes and scripts, and he's solving the Da Vinci Code to make this fucking video.
Have you ever done a video game review? Now I haven't seen much of Red Cow channel stuff, but I have seen the clip channel. So have you ever done a video game review in that style?
No.
Okay.
No, the closest is I did like a comprehensive review of how we built the homebrew arcades. And I lifted footage from YouTube. I just stole it like a bastard.
So I will say that that you do kind of have to do a lot of the stuff that he was talking about, the time codes. Those are actually really important, especially with his style of video games, where he'll be talking about specific. Okay, take the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle video, for instance. That one little gap where come to find out you can just walk across the gap, but he kept trying to jump that tiny little gap. And, he's just like, shitload of fuck, whatever the fuck. You would, on your recording device, you would need to mark, okay, at 12 minutes and 30 seconds is when I start that. Because if you go, I've tried I've done a bunch of game reviews back in the early days of my channel. And one time I just tried to just like raw dog it. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of the time codes. I'm just going to, it took me so much longer because I forgot where like a lot of points were. I have to do that now to this day. Like whenever I'm doing a review on some like shitty album or something like Chris Gaines or Vanilla Ice or whatever, like there'll be, sometimes there'll be concerts on YouTube I'll have to watch. And then when I download it, I have to have like the exact time code to show like what I'm talking about. So, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have known that had I not watched I mean, I know it's obvious now, but I wouldn't have known that had I not watched that making of video.
Fair enough. I'm a raw dog kind of an editor, I've learned. So when I brought on, so basically random people contacted me and said like, I'd like to edit for you. I've edited before or whatever. And I vetted them a little bit. I was like, first of all, do you seem, because you can imagine like strange people would be like, give me your footage and I'll edit, and then you just end up in like a really bizarre relationship with somebody. We had to figure out like, these videos don't generate a lot of money. So what's the right, like it's going to be half volunteering and half getting paid is kind of what it's going to have to be. So we figured out like the average RCA, a high performing Red Cow arcade clip pays $30. Will generate $30 in revenue. So we figured like, okay, for one clip, it's probably 20. And then if they go the extra mile, or if they do a way bigger job, or it's a much harder video, like I'll go to 50 or more. If it makes sense. Right now, like I recently did a hiring of EJ Massa hiring a bunch of flower gothics. That's funny. I think that's a super.
I'm trying to highlight EJ's comments anytime he makes one, so I can feel like the entire gang is here.
Oh yeah, that makes me feel at home too. I recently figured out that like 20% of everything that we're making is going to editors right now. And so we have what? We have Kev, Zach, Todd, Trevor, Juan, Jason, and Dan. Those are the so there's a bunch of them, and that's really the way to do it. Or I found because there's kind of like some accountability and like a team of people that are all kind of like, oh, you ran into this problem, I ran into this problem, I got the hard clip this week. You also find that like one guy, like for instance, Trevor is really, really good at like entertainment news and media because he's really plugged into that world. So when you ask the question, how are they going to find the clip that you would have thought? Well, a lot of times I'm just kind of waiting for them to, it's like, you have creative license, do whatever. He comes up with way different stuff than I would have come up with. You can sometimes see you probably have spotted like different editing styles, and that's the slobs showing their hands. Or like you know, Dan, who's the Super Bob Hoskins Bros, like he likes making big videos. He doesn't want to make little small time videos. So he'll often choose something that's much more deluxe or something he can go much more in depth on. Or like this guy Zach seems to like the challenge of doing like, you know, the Gerard stuff or the like the internet drama or the controversial content.
Frankie,
Jason,
I don't understand why you're telling us all this. I wanted to believe that any time I watched Red Cow Arcade, it was EJ and Frankie doing everything. I don't know why you're telling me this.
Well, I'll say this. I will say this. Yeah, of course I know you're kidding, but I was, it's worth, well, first of all, I mean, like, it's not as though my voice is not in the clip. I'm literally the one speaking and the one generating the traffic. But yes, the edit is part of the personality of the thing.
What do you think it was about James Rolfe that and you had said this before, he just cannot give it up for that team, just like being a part of a team. It's got to like, and I do think on some level, like the fans really like do want it to be all him, and what and like I just like, and he, I guess his public persona is like, okay, I need to, you know, sell it as like it's still Daddy James doing everything.
Yeah.
But then behind the scenes, he's just like, take all this shit and just do it all. Take it away from me. I need to go spend time with my kids or whatever.
Well, that's the actual problem, because obviously you can delegate, you can be a productivity multiplier. That's like what good leadership is to try to, you know, hey, like what can we accomplish with many of us instead of one of us, you know? And I mean, obviously, like it's not as though a director of a feature film would, you know, is editing, is the DP, is the actor. Like that's very, very uncommon. So it's more about like, can you lead a group of people to execute on a singular vision, or incorporate their ideas into a what feels like a cohesive vision. Now we're just talking about podcast clips, so it's small, it's small potatoes, but I still take, you know, I don't want to put anything on YouTube that I think sucks or that I wouldn't watch myself or that I think doesn't add anything productive or interesting or unique to a conversation. So I still care about I care very much how these things are edited and put out. But what I found was, for maybe like, I don't know, probably the first 2 months of trying it, and this is what made me so hesitant to do it, because I knew that I was like, I'm going to have to invest a lot of time and like energy into coaching and mentoring and training, basically. Some guys, like they had edited a little bit, but they, you know, needed to learn like ways of being more efficient or whatever. It's like any direction. You have to provide a lot of feedback for them to kind of like align with you. Some of them, like right out of the gate, got it pretty close, got it like 80%. Some of them were like at 40%. That didn't mean they're bad editors. It just meant like they had to do another 2 or 3. And now like I barely have any notes at the end of it. But for the first like few rounds, I would write up like a page, 2 pages of notes, like, hey, this little thing, that little thing, and just kind of calibrates them. Other times I would say, all right, there's a lot I want to change about this. Thanks for doing the first pass. And I'd go in and I would spend hours kind of making it as close to ideal as I could, and then re-presenting it to them. And that seemed to help too, where they're like, oh, because now they're intimate with the footage. They know what their options were. They now see decisions I made that they hadn't thought of. It's cool. It's, and I'll say this too, seriously. Like the sort of thing that would kill something like this are egos or defensive people or people who can't take feedback or people who are like, fuck you, you're paying me $20 to do this. You know, all of these guys have been like, oh, like they actually have been very receptive to the feedback. Like I love the feedback. Like they love, I think, hearing about how they could improve. They're all like go-getters, which is really, I'm very attracted to that in a personality type. I don't like complacency or people that want to waste their lives. So it's very, you know, some of these dudes are like dads or they got other shit to do. They're making their own content. Some of them have their own YouTube channels. And I'm like, why are you editing for my YouTube channel when you've got your own? But they got some extra time on their hands and they want to do something besides, you know, waste it. So
you guys have finally hit your stride. You know, you found your niche. You found the thing that people want from you two, I guess. Because
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm always check in on your channel. I'll be like, you know, we're pretty close in subs, and I feel like I have it as like a little race in my mind. I'm like, where are they? Are they trailing me by that much in the race? Where are we at? And it's like, you guys are like growing, like get like 100 new subs every, you know, like week or so, something like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely growing faster than you know, like I don't know, how long did it take the first channel to get to 20K?
Yeah, I guess it would have been like, so we got to 20K what, this past year? Or we recently crossed 21K on that channel. I don't know. It must have taken like 6 or 7 years or 8 years of like serious work. But you
Damn.
know, look, it's like there's like two things that have to happen. There's like attracting new viewership, and the way you do that is you talk about things they're searching for. It has nothing to do with you. And then part two of that is you make great content whether people are watching or not. So that if they ever do happen upon you, they have not only good content in the present, but in the backlog. In fact, we've had a problem of like there's too much backlog. People have been like, I don't know how to like tackle 2 decades of content, but yeah, I don't know. Like it eventually, I think a lot of people, like as they get really familiar with a creator and they really feel at home or cozy with a creator, they'll go back in the backlog and be like, show me something else. Teach me more about these guys. That's why we made that documentary, that little like 17-minute thing that was like, here's just like a quick,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
do
gonna
you have something like that? Something that just kind of says like, here's who Josh is.
I'm stealing that from you. I'm gonna do
Nice.
that because I thought it was a really good idea. I was like, oh, that's really smart because you're kind of being like, well, let me show you like the choice or the greatest hits, if you will, of uh our past content that you may not scroll, because you know I have a few people now that have jumped on board my channel who I'm getting comments on all my old videos that from these people, you know, and I'm like, you know, shit, you know, finally, you know, like I always figured at some point I was like, my channel's going to get big enough to where people will go back and look at these old videos I put a lot of fucking effort into that nobody watched.
Right.
And, you know, I was like, surely that will one day happen. And it just, you know, I would get this, I used to get this comment all the time, and it would like break my heart on a certain level, and we get it with the band too. The comment was, I can't believe this channel only has 2,000 subscribers. I can't believe this channel yeah. And it's just like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't know why either. I have no idea. I feel like my content is, when I was doing like video game shit, for instance, I felt like I was just as good, if not better than RGT, and I have way less of an annoying face than he does. He has a way more punchable face than I do, and he doesn't even.
I almost got in a fight with him at a trampoline park.
Yeah, the Persian RGT or whatever.
That's right, Portuguese. Yeah.
Portuguese. So like I mean it's I don't know, man. Like if I had never talked about Rex Viper or whatever, I think my channel would still just be sitting around like 7,000 subscribers or whatever. You know, it really gave me a boost. And I mean, I'm reminded of this is a random example. The stand-up comedian Bill Engvall, which I don't even think is that funny. I don't think he's very funny at all. He had you know, those 90s comics had their shticks, you know. His was the here's your sign, you know, like everyone should get, or he's like, some people should just get a sign that says I'm stupid. And then he described these certain situations where someone did something stupid, and Bill would be like, here's your sign. It was basically like a cheaper, you might be a redneck if, you know, kind of thing. But he did like a music video, and comics would do this too in the 90s, and it was so schlocky, and that might warrant its own video that I make on my channel, stand-up comedy comedians music videos, where basically it was just like a 4 on the floor like techno beat or something like that, and it would just be them doing their bits, and it could technically be played on like music video stations. And I remember Bill saying one time, he's like, you know, yeah, they weren't the greatest videos, but it brought people to the party. The here's your sign videos brought people to the party, and stuck around for the other stuff. And that stupid old clip just rings in the back of my head whenever I think about the Rex Viper or the AVGN stuff. It's like, I wanted to talk about that stuff anyway. It's not like, let me find this pariah on YouTube and just talk about him, you know, because it's a topic of interest right now. And that's not a bad strategy either. I'm not dissing that strategy, really. But I legitimately wanted to talk about it. That's why I think it did well, because I was passionate about it.
Have you ever made a video, if you were to be honest, whether it's about James or otherwise, that you didn't really want to make, but you thought like, this might.
Guys, I
maybe
didn't
this
want
will
to.
bring
I really didn't want to make this video. I
not
really
like
didn't want
that.
to talk about this.
Well, just one where you were like, I guess my fans, my subs have been asking for this, so not really into it, but I'll do it anyway.
I believe so. Hold on, I want to answer that question honestly. I remember doing one on that I thought would be really successful, and it like just it is to this day one of my lowest viewed videos. It was about actor David Arquette when he was a wrestler for the WCW, and
Oh yeah,
he won like the world championship belt, and the fans were pissed off because they're like, this is so farcical. Like, we're already suspending our disbelief because we're watching professional wrestling, but to have this Hollywood actor come in and now he like won the championship belt, like what the fuck? So I did a whole video on that, thinking that like, oh, this is gonna be something that people don't know about. That'll be interesting. And that video fucking bombed. Yeah, and as I'm looking through these in the past few years, I mainly only just stick to things that I'm interested in or that I find interesting, but they were just, oh man, one that I'm really sad never got any views. I did this video. Have you heard that band OK Go? Yeah. So OK Go is their whole shtick is their music videos are insane. Like they did the treadmill video and they broke the internet, back in 2007. And so I did a whole video about like OK Go, a band that Gimmicks built. And I went in depth about like how this is a band that truly nobody really cares about their music. They're only there for the music videos. So why don't these guys become like short film makers or something like that? Why are they, proceeding under this farce of a band when you go to their Spotify and it's like 1 million monthly listeners, but you go to their YouTube channel and their videos are getting 30 million, 40 million, 50 million views. And it's just, people are just there and their videos are spectacular. They're amazing videos, but their music is very generic pop indie or whatever. So I did a whole video about that. It was like, what? Oh, I thought it was longer. It was only 6 minutes, but short and sweet. But yeah, I thought that one would do really well. And it's only sitting at, came out 3 years ago. It's at 428 views. So
you never know though. I mean, like even if it stays there forever, it's like as you bring in subs from like then 10 people from that come in years later go back like like do or it's all these little tiny ways that you can connect with people. And I swear, like I've talked about this before, not to pick on RGT relentlessly, like that guy gets a lot of viewership because he rides, like he's sure to talk about the new video game right when it comes out or right as it's announced, or he's very timely, and he doesn't let a thing like quality or effort weigh him down. But he doesn't have fans. He has a Patreon. Nobody subscribes to it, like. So I don't know. I there was a sketch comedy group on YouTube. Sketch comedy is not very popular on YouTube generally. These guys had like 1 million subs, and they were big Boxmac fans. And I remember I talked to them at some length. Where I was like, "We're trying to grow. Why aren't we growing?" Because they saw, they really liked the content. And they were like, "I don't know." I was like, They were like, "Your stuff though, even small though it is, they're like, you got a very very high engagement level. Your fans really are responding to you." And they were like, bottle that. That's valuable, because when it comes right down to it, it's not it really should not be an exercise in watching numbers go up. Like, why are we making this shit? Why am I talking on a podcast instead of going off and making a big film? Or why am I making a big film in the first place? And I think the answer is I'm trying, like, I have a desire to express myself because I have thoughts and I want to express them. And I want them to connect with people that want to be connected with about this stuff. And so if that's 1,000 or it's 10,000 or it's 100,000, I don't know. I think like the goal is accomplished as long as it's not like 2 people or something.
So like, EJ's playing Mega Man. Dude, those are some of my favorite, like Mega Man is like one of my favorite video games of all time. And it could be the NES Mega Man. It could be the Mega Man X series, which I think is some of the best side-scrolling action platformer games out there, until they got to like Mega Man X6. Then it kind of went downhill for me. But fucking love. I wish that Capcom hadn't just completely turned their back on the Mega Man series, because like that's like one of my favorite video games of all time. But no,
So good.
I think that to what you're saying too, this was what kind of kid I was in school. Whenever there would be some kind of philosophical discussion that the teacher would bring up, and he'd ask a question like, so why do you think, I was always a kid going, oh, pick me. Because in my mind, I had the most rounded out, well-informed, intellectual opinion amongst any of my classmates. Because I was like, I know I'm smarter than all these douchebags. And I know what I have to say is so much more important. And also, what goes along with that is like, whenever I do videos is like, I'll have a curiosity about something, and combine that curiosity with my urge to be like, ooh, let me tell you about this thing or whatever. Fucking someone call me. Should put on vibrate. But yeah, it's like that curiosity combined with that slight bit of narcissism, where you think you're, like your voice or the thing that you have to say is going to be entertaining or funny or whatever. I think that also plays into it. And that's what's kept me going on YouTube, is just the curiosity and my urge to talk about things that I find interesting. And that's what's pulled me through the lean years of the 200 view videos and kept me going. And there's always, you also have to have like hope and faith, like all these weird, like almost like pseudo religious things you have to have when it comes to making videos. Cause it's like, I have faith that even though right now my views are shit, one day, perhaps I will hit 100,000 views.
We will be the biggest YouTubers of all time.
Cool.
There was I was in a lame, I was forced to go to a lame corporate retreat recently. And there was there's a round table about like, what are you doing what are your goals with mental health, physical health, emotional health, social, for your social life. And there was one they actually said spiritual health, which for a work thing, I was very surprised by. There's a lot of people that push against that sort of thing. I didn't, and spiritual, of course, is a more vague term anyway. And so they can get away with being like, we're not talking about faith. But then I was like, well, it's probably worth defining what that word means.
That's like the people who are like, I'm not necessarily a Christian. I'm just very spiritual, or I'm just like, yeah, I'm pretty much an atheist, but I'm more agnostic than atheist. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, so I said we ran around the table, and some people talked about finding faith, or they're looking for faith, or they have faith, or whatever. And we got to the last guy, and he was like, so I don't do any of that, which I thought the whole table would be like that, honestly. But then suddenly he felt like he was this a-religious person that was weird or something. And I said, well, again, they used the word spiritual. They didn't use the word religious. And I know that they didn't say what that meant. But I said, but I take it to mean the prism through which you understand the meaning of your own life. Because the truth is like, you're going to have to conceive of something to understand where it is that you fit into this whole thing. Like that could be a nihilistic prism. That could be like, I don't know, I'm here conditionally, but I think as soon as you get into territory like you're getting into, where you're like, well, I feel called to express this opinion. I feel as though it's important that I express this opinion. Maybe somebody would like to receive this thought, or maybe I'd like to learn, I think as soon as you get into that territory, you're starting to build a way that you're constructing a way that you view yourself, and you view the way that you fit into the world. And eventually that's going to turn into an ethical code or a moral code or something. So I think you're right. I think it's like, I don't know. You ever see an American movie?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah. I forgot a lot of the beats and plot points, but I remember me and my ex-girlfriend at the time watching it, and we were both just cackling over how crazy that guy was. And the quote, I forget the quote, but he made his grandfather do this. He did this crazy ADR with his grandfather at the end of the movie. He's like, no, don't worry. God told me to do it, or something like that.
Oh yeah. It's all right. It's okay. There's something to live for. Jesus told me so.
Dude, we would quote that shit to each other all the time. We thought that shit was so funny. And I even noticed the nod to American movie in one of the AVGN episodes. He goes to cut the cupboard, like he cuts it or he scores it to where when he jams his head through, it would go right through the cabinet or whatever.
And James Rolfe did it too, yeah.
Right, and James Rolfe, you know, I see it was like little nods like that he used to throw into the AVGN that I appreciated. But yeah, anyway, you were talking.
Well, I only bring it up because Mark Borchardt is the subject of this movie, American movie. It's about an alcoholic guy who's maybe on the spectrum. Back then, they wouldn't have said that. I don't think they even had the language for that at the time.
No.
But he's definitely like an eccentric, and he is in a very ordinary Midwestern town in Wisconsin, and he wants to make the great American movie. He wants to make, he wants to take over the world with his creative works.
Coven.
Yeah. So well, so it starts as Northwestern was the feature film. He goes, "There's no fucking way I'm going to be able to make Northwestern, man, and so I'm going to have to make Coven, man." You know, like that's not the way to pronounce it. He's like, "Well, what is the right way to pronounce it? Coven, like a witch's coven." He's like, no, because coven sounds like oven, man. It's a great movie.
Real quick, while Jason's in the chat, it is review. I mean, review.
Yeah, it's review. Review. That's what the proper way to say the word.
I also want to ask you something as I listen to your things, and I can't interject in that moment, which I find annoying.
I'll work on it.
Yeah. Find out some way where I can you can like
smell-o-vision.
You can telegram me in or something. Yeah. So I don't know if this is a South thing. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, so I'm in the heart of the South. I actually don't even consider Jacksonville, Florida, the heart of the South. I consider like Alabama or like Georgia more southier. Even though because you keep going south in Florida, you hit Miami, and it's all like Hispanic, Latino, whatever. But anyway, I don't know the Southern thing. So some people down here will say TV instead of TV.
Oh yeah.
Or
CD. I know him from the TV.
Yeah. But so like my friend Trey, who does not have a Southern accent, he talks kind of like a bro like me. You know, I kind of talks like this, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I turned on the TV the other day," and I'm like, "Why do you say TV? Why are you like enunciating the T so hard?"
TV.
It's TV. Anyway, sorry.
That's funny. Do we say it? Is that why you're bringing?
No. Well, you were talking about weird ways of pronouncing words. Mountain and all that, you know, James's things, Jason's things, whatever.
Oh, people hate that shit. They don't want me making fun of Mountain.
He
one after another being like, that's a fine way to say mountain.
And climb the mountain in the buttons. Or no, maybe that was my friend Brian who called him buttons. I had a friend who I don't think he had a speech impediment, but we still made fun of him anyway. He instead of saying he couldn't pronounce his THs, he'd just say D. And so everything was brudder, mutter, fodder, you know, anything with like a TH in it. Like he said like the D sound. So his nickname that he got in high school was Brudder. We just said, "Hey, where's Brudder at?" You know, like
that's awesome, Brudder. There was I had a million, like you can tell probably from our show that, you know, that we pick up on small things and then make fun of people for it and stuff. I had in high school, there's a million like that. Like one that comes to mind is there was a kid that every time he said anything, he ended it with this little kind of wispy giggle, and it sounded like
it's like the third character in Beavis and Butthead or something who had his own quirky way of talking. I don't know why there's balloons flying around me, by the way.
Yeah, why is that? Why
I don't know. I didn't like it, and I hope it doesn't happen again.
Is that like I noticed I was in a Zoom the other day, and I did a thumbs up. I wasn't actually thumbing up anybody. I was narrating something. I was sounding something. And suddenly, like, because I did the thumbs up, like a big, like, cartoon thumbs up appeared around me.
I don't like that.
And I was like, is this the future? Is this the fucking stupid future?
Yeah, seriously. I don't impose your cutesy crap on me and against my will, you know? Like I want to.
So just to finish the thought, American movie, Mark Borchardt, he comes off like a crazy person, and it's because he's got this like delusional amount of ambition. You know, he's like he seems, but it feels as though he's like charged with glorious purpose, to quote Loki or something. It's as though he's on a mission from God to like, I will die if I don't make this movie. And I've always loved that. And obviously you won't die if you don't make the movie. You frankly don't have to make the movie at all. That's the practical reality of it. But the way he understands his life is, this is my calling. And I think we all invent something. You know, the fact is like, we do live in the abstract. We don't live in practical matters most of the time. So I think it's useful to understand your own like spiritual predispositions in that way.
I mean, it's like, I think for most people, the default is to, now is it default or default? That's another one. No, I'm just joking.
I say default, but by default. Yeah.
Default.
Default.
I say default.
Ridiculous.
That's my quirk. That's my tism.
By default.
By default, I think that most people, men and women, when they get out of high school, they get out of school, they learn the rules. I think that your wife or your internet crapped out right over your Hank Hill impression.
Right over my Hank Hill? Oh, man.
Yeah, it like glitched out on my end at least, but I'm sure it was glorious. But no, I think that the default is that most people, like, talking about what you're talking about, in reference to what you're talking about. I don't know. I think the thing is, find a wife, get a good career, pop out some kids, raise them. And I don't want to sound like sanctimonious or whatever, but I think like artists and creative types, that's just not good enough for us. God, it sounds so douchey. Okay, I'm prefacing everything I'm about to say with, I know it sounds douchey. I know what I'm saying sounds douchey.
What are they going to do? Unsubscribe? Fuck them.
Now we have a nice little streak going on here with the concurrent viewers. I'm impressed, chat. Thank you for everyone. I haven't been able to read a single comment hardly. I'm usually reading all the.
I know, right? At some point, we probably should turn it to like questions or something.
Yeah, I'll do that in just a second. Someone's username is Gerard's Conscience. I fucking love that shit. Really but now, I think for artists and creative types, it's not enough to just have like. I remember asking my mom. I was at my grandma's house. I was in like 8th grade, and I was truly like confused about this. I was like, so when I get out of high school, like, do I just like get a job and then like die? Cause like I was truly like, cause like before that, you're being prepared for something to happen constantly. Your whole childhood, you're constantly being prepared for this thing that's going to happen after high school. And, you're so busy preparing and going to classes and homework and all this other shit and socializing, trying to survive, just navigating that all those situations, that you don't stop to think that like, oh, these are all man-made constructs and my life is happening right now. And right. I could have literally, if I had the know-how and the acumen, I could have started my own business when I was 10. There's nothing technically saying I can't, but you just, I don't know, you fall into the kind of the I don't know, all these fucking words escape me because I'm fucking alcohol brain. Never start drinking anybody. Your brain gets less smart. But
you gonna stop drinking, Josh?
One of these days, man. I think if I can ever get out of my fucking job as a karaoke DJ, I'll be able to cut.
Oh, because that kind of like feeds the habit a little bit.
Dude, it's like, oh my God, having to deal with a bunch of drunk people and loud music, and it's just it's such a pain in the ass. It's so hard to not drink at a job like that. But anyway, like for me, when my mom told me, my mom responded to my question. She goes, "Oh no, other stuff kind of happens also." And because I don't think she had like a great answer for like that question of like, do I just get a job after high school and like die, or like raise a family and die or whatever. I think the answer that I found to that question was like creativity, art, creating art. There's something, again, it sounds douchey. There's something spiritual about it in a way, because you're creating something from nothing, especially for me when it comes to like music.
Yeah. I love him. I love impossible things. It's one of my favorite shit in the world. Like where there's, I don't know, the year is 2024 and you come up with some crazy idea. then it's 2026 and the idea is real and you're standing in front of a group of people presenting it. I love that.
Oh yeah, I mean, with your movie, the various movies you made, but especially with like, I think I was mentioning this on one of my other live streams that you may or may not have seen. You may have jumped in just after I talked about it. Not only did you make Having Fun Up There, you know, which is like a legit, actual, like, well shot, you know, good sound design, a good soundtrack, you know, well edited, all that stuff looks like an actual movie that would be in theaters. Not only did you do that, which looks like something I would never want to take on ever. Like that would be like making like 10 studio length albums, you know, effort wise. But then you made like a fucking audio, you made a book about the movie you did, and then you made an audiobook. And it's like, no one can ever accuse you of not putting the work in.
Well, you know, it's funny. That was 2014, that the year that I finished the movie and then wrote the book and then released the book. I remember I brought the book to one of the screenings and the other people that we worked with were like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, I read a book on lulu.com. And 3 years later, I would have a child. And so that was like the last hurrah of like, I've got all the cycles in the world. You know, I'm going to neglect everything for my health, everything else for my creative life. And people will ask, I'll be like, you're going to make another feature length film? And I intend to, I think so. But it's not currently a priority. And part of the reason it's not a priority is because I made like 4 of them. And, you know, so you can kind of start to push stuff on the shelf. There's somebody in the chat here, maybe they were joking around. But they said like anti-work for life or, you know, fuck work or something. Obviously, there's a lot of shithole jobs, and you know, so I'm not here to defend like corporate life or something. But come on, man, like putting in the work and having something that you can materially show for your time. That's why sometimes I'll rail against like video game addiction, and video game addicts don't like that shit. You think alcoholics don't like it? Don't take away their video games; they get real pissy. But having something to show for your time, is so edifying. And and like it'll be edifying 10 years later. You can go back and be like, wasn't that cool that I lived life back then? You know,
I'll get drunk sometimes and go and watch some of my old videos from 5 years ago and agree with myself.
Yeah, you know? I do too. Sometimes I'm like, yeah,
like, damn, that was a good video I made. I really enjoyed that. I you know, if for nothing else, you know, and then with music, like, I don't know, man, music to me is the ultimate experience because I can go on stage and play it live in real time and, you know, just see people enjoying it in real time and the applause and all that shit. Like it's very much, it's up there with like the highs that one can have.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So anybody in the chat, if you have questions, I saw one for Frankie about having fun up there. Did you catch that one?
Oh no, what was it?
It was talking about if you consulted with music. Okay, I'll just highlight it here. Frankie, I was curious about having fun up there. Did you consult with musicians on it, or was that self-research, or already somewhat aware of the ins and outs of music through editing?
So Dario is asking about my 4th feature film that came out in 2014. It's called Having Fun Up There. It's about a musician who, if you've seen the clip with Josh, we go over quite a bit of it.
Oh, we very much went in depth on that.
Yeah. So, but the quick answer to that is that the writer was a musician. He, much like Josh, you know, Josh kept joking about, he was like, I relate too much to this movie. Jeff, who was the writer, you know, I think lived a musical creative life very similar to Josh. And so he brought all of that to the production. I brought the filmmaking, he brought the music and the culture, basically.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I was like, how the fuck does Frankie know about all, you know, this aspect or that aspect? Yeah. All right. What OSW review HD? What video of your own do you rewatch? I've already well, I guess I haven't answered that. I said ones that I liked that got no views, but I guess do you rewatch, or what's one of the ones that you rewatched that you did? Maybe because
it's like, a great question, because it's, by the way, and that's from OSW Reviews, which is a big YouTube channel, and they make a lot of content. I would like to ask them the same question, but I you know, like much like you, I've worked on countless videos and put a ton of effort into them, and you assume that either like you're never going to watch this shit again when you're done with it because you're just so sick of looking at it, or you're like, man, when this is done, I better watch it a bunch of times just for the just so I can get some return on investment or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can never really predict which ones you will actually ultimately become a fan of. There's definitely videos where like, I'm proud of them, I'm glad they're out there, but like, I don't no interest in rewatching them.
Yeah, same.
Ever. But then there are some where I'm like, I think I'm kind of a fan of this video. So I don't know. The probably the one that I think of off the top of my head would be that Who Is Red Cow video, the channel trailer, just because it's nice to be. It's like a mini funeral for me. It's an opportunity to step back and be like, wait, what have I done?
Who was Frankie in his living years? What did he do?
Well, you don't get to go to your own funeral, so it's nice in that way. The other one, there's a Halloween, all the Halloween box machs are fun, but there's one where we did like a Food Network parody where, Nina's the host and it's like a food competition. And I'm just very proud of the Food Network parody.
Oh, I need to watch that one.
I think we nailed it. And Nina's very funny in it. And John and I are doing Southern accents for some reason. We're in the like reality show side interviews. We're Southern and we never explain the joke.
It feels right for a food show. It just seems like Paula Deen and butter and Southern accents. Yeah.
I've been cooking with Jonathan Hunt for 25 years. Today, we are going to make a delicious roux. This is the whole thing. So I like that video. Honestly, every year, like I'll go through our Halloween playlist just to, I love Halloween and I have made a lot of tributes to Halloween through our content. So I like to go back and watch those.
I'd say for me, it's my music videos that especially the ones that I directed.
Yeah.
I love going back and watching those. And just because I put so much fucking work into them. I'm making like a 3 or 4 minute short film essentially. And I don't know dick about film. I just do whatever looks good to me. Unlike, you and Frankie who know absolutely what you're doing. All right, let's get to rent optional. 2 questions. 1, do you say Last Action Hero or Last Action Hero? Wait. Do you say Last Action Hero or Last? I don't get what that is. 2, Josh, thoughts on the new Pearl Jam song, Dark Matter? I've not heard the new Pearl Jam song, but if you've been watching my channel at all, you know my feelings on Pearl Jam. I'm not a fan, really, and it's mainly never really connected with Eddie Vedder's voice. I would classify Pearl Jam as like grunge blues. I would say I've always said like Nirvana was grunge punk rock, Alice in Chains was grunge like Black Sabbath, and Soundgarden was like grunge metal. And I also thought Pearl Jam was grunge blues, and I'm not a fan of the blues. So I don't know. I mean, they could always reinvent themselves. They did Do the Evolution. I really like that song a lot because it didn't sound like Pearl Jam. Let's see.
I actually am like a casual when it comes to music. I kind of like Pearl Jam. I like 90s Pearl Jam.
I just took you as someone who like just kind of music was just around and it's fine, but you weren't particularly like super passionate about. Okay,
I'm not like a music fly. I am to music like most people are to movies, which is like
that's how I am to movies. Unless you bring up Koyaanisqatsi, then I can't shut up.
You're
about
into it. That's so weird that I brought that up without knowing that you had a connection to that movie. That's weird.
I'm sorry for highlighting this because this wasn't actually a real question. This was we invite Micro Mike onto your show, ask about his cock size. Okay.
That same guy, Gerard's Conscience there, he said something about like, tell Josh to stop defending Doug's sex pestery. And I wonder if we get a guy who comments all the time about like Doug Walker covered up sex crimes.
Yes, I get that same guy. He's like, he'll just say Doug Walker is a sex pest. And
I'm just curious. I'm like, is there any evidence whatsoever to what you're saying? Or
I asked that same thing. I'm like, show me the receipts, show me the docs, and I will do if it seems interesting enough, I may do a video on it. I Googled it, couldn't find anything. All I found was about the change of channel document.
I know that there was a of course there's this Jew Wario guy. I also know there's some kind of other sexual harassment thing involving one of their creators that they had to let go. And so it sounds like, I believe they took like a year to do it or something. So there were some complaints around the way things were handled with somebody who was making advances and then somebody else.
Not Doug himself though. Like,
what's that?
it's not Doug himself. Like Doug
It's
wasn't.
not Doug himself, and yeah, so like it's already a disingenuous statement to suggest that, and
I had
a
to
pretty
even
horrible one.
Google like what sex pest even meant because I didn't know what that term
We're too
meant.
old for that shit.
Yeah, it's like I don't know.
I don't think Doug Walker's ever had sex in his life. I don't think he can be accused of this.
I don't think so either. Honestly, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know. Anyway, moving on. I really like this next question. Chris, and I never know how to say his last name. He watches my streams a lot, and I think this is a good question for Frankie. What is your favorite band or genre of music?
I think folk.
Really?
I think so.
So
I
like,
mean, I like, I like a lot of different genres, but at the end of the day, like the thing I always come back to is like Cat Stevens, Great Big Sea. Do you know Great Big Sea? Like they're a Newfoundland folk band. They do like a, hey, it's just an ordinary day and it's all your frame of mind. I don't know. But anyway, they're pretty popular. They do like kind of sea shanty type stuff. The night
okay.
that Patty Murphy died was a night I'll never forget. So, somebody in the chat.
So do you like bands like Dropkick Murphys or
Sort of. I mean, they're very like they're huge in this area, in Boston.
shipping up to Boston to find my wooden leg? Yeah.
So yeah, I like Bob Dylan. I love Cat Stevens.
I
I
could
can't,
never
yeah,
get.
like
I can't get
nothing
into
chills
Dylan.
me out like Cat Stevens.
Yeah, good old Yusef, that
Yes.
old Muslim folk singer. I guess this is a legitimate question. What's your favorite video with James Rolfe in it? Maybe what's our favorite AVGN episode? I don't know. Or
Let's just
video.
go with it, CineMassacre. Let's call it CineMassacre. Do you have one? I have one right off the top of my head. Like
Okay.
it's not even close.
All right, go for it.
CineMassacre 200.
Oh,
So
the 200th episode?
No, it's called. It's like, ironically, it's his whole like counting of films, like his 200th film. So he calls it CineMassacre 200. But it was I guess not unlike the Who Is Red Cow video. It's kind of like a chronicling. He made it, 15 years ago, but it was a chronicling of all of the iterations of his filmmaking journey. And so he, in detail, he shows like at this time I had a camcorder that had like some titling built into it. And so now suddenly I was able to do this kind of special. It's just a really cool, like in book form when he wrote, because basically Cinemaster 200 is his book. It doesn't come off nearly as genuine and illustrative, but that video, I think it's like a 20-minute video. It's kind of like touching and relatable. It's like, I think it's James at his best.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I don't know what tab that would even be under if I went to CineMassacre's YouTube page. For me, it would probably be the Earthbound video he did. I actually felt not emotional, but one notch below emotional to where you're almost emotional. Cause I don't know, some of the parts of, like how he was explaining it and going, and I've beaten Earthbound. So I knew everything he was talking about. And, I thought that was a truly great later era AVGN. And that was kind of when he peaked and after that, it was just a downward slope. I also liked shit like when he was out of character, like when he did the Sega Genesis versus the Super Nintendo. He wasn't even the nerd character. He did that video like 10 years ago. And I don't know. I thought like stuff like that was pretty interesting where he didn't have to adhere to, being this character, but it was still interesting. I guess this could be a decent question. Heated pool and bar. Can you see these questions that are
I can. Yep. I can see them.
Yep. I don't got to read them anymore. Okay.
Frankie, if someone came in and offered to finance your next movie, you retain full creative control. What kind of budget would it take for you to drop everything, find a script, and film it? A script that implies that like I may or may not be writing it, right? I think I would want to write my next movie unless I had some collaborator. I would think that like probably there was a time when EJ and I were talking pretty seriously about maybe writing something together or making something together where we would co-write it and then he'd shoot and I'd direct something along those lines. I don't know, man. It's hard to say because I don't think like budget's the thing that's in the way. The fact of the matter is like we've been accumulating, like we have a Red Cow LLC, and so all ad revenue and all Patreon revenue, it all goes into a fund. And there's like, there's money in that fund and we could easily make a movie with that. And so I think it's much more about like, It's not about having no time at the risk of being critiqued, because obviously we sacrifice a tremendous amount of time to continue making content all the time. But I'm finding that as a dad, many small projects that you can just kind of turn over and release, that's much more manageable than I would have to basically put the giant pause on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you'd have to.
And do that, which is, I think is coming. I just think my kid has to be older, honestly, and maybe involved, something like that. But that would be what's stopping it.
Oh, the shit. There's a super chat for $9.99 that I didn't read.
What?
Chicago, is this going to put it up there? I'll just read it. It's from Chicago. He also watched he, she, whatever. I think it's he. My demographics is literally like 97% male on my YouTube channel. So I'm pretty safe in saying he.
Well, you don't unbox clothes, so there's no.
Yeah, I was on one of my streams. I'm like, what kind of content do girls like? And there was like a girl who commented. She's like, I don't know, stuff about music, and the stuff you do. And I'm like, oh, all right, maybe
I'm making it. It's only men.
Freakish outlier. Chicago says, I waited forever for this collab. Happy to be here, Josh and Frankie. Thank you, Chicago. You're always.
You might have one of the guys that turned me on to the fact that Josh was streaming like last week, and I popped in.
Oh, nice. Oh yeah. I've been doing this. I've been attempting to do this thing every week to where I do like a fully edited, produced video and I live stream. I'm trying to do like 2 videos a week. Because all the channels that I've seen that have like blown up have been from people who post consistently, like what you guys do with the clips. Like
I wanted to ask you about that. Where I was like, do you ever, as somebody who's producing content solo, like you don't have an EJ or somebody to just chat with or something? Yeah. Do you find that like, okay, I got to come up with something, and your stuff is semi-scripted? Is that kind of how you do, or are you talking off the cuff and then editing?
It's 100% teleprompter.
Oh, it is. So you're reading in most of the time. It looks good.
It's far away enough to where you can't tell them. I can, EJ, I love you, death brother, but I can see your eyes so obviously panning back and forth whenever you do your videos. I think the teleprompter is really close to his face. And that's probably why, because my eyes would do that same thing. But my teleprompter is far away enough to where I can get, and I naturally emote with my face and hands, so it kind of distracts from the fact that I might be reading something. For the longest time, I memorized my lines, and there'd be a lot of ums. There'd be a lot of I'm not saying the line quite how I wrote it, and how I wrote it was the perfect way I wanted to say it. And so my bandmate or my singer Ari for Christmas 2 or 3 years ago got me a teleprompter, and I got a little Amazon Fire for the actual screen or whatever, but she got me the reflective mirror or whatever. Put it on my DSLR, dude. It's been a game changer. Like it's made life so. I mean, life still sucks because you have to write the fucking script, which is the hardest part. Writing the script and editing are the 2 pain in the ass parts. Actually performing the video in front of the camera, that's easy as fuck. That's the easiest part to it. But like, get it. Actually, a third thing, getting the idea, especially for a channel like mine where I'm not super like, yes, this series of talking about like weird album pivots or career pivots, like, Eddie Murphy decides he wants to make an album, a pop album or whatever. Like, I've done like 6 of them ish so far, and it's like there's a lot to be mined from that. But I'm not set in. I just started doing this maybe 5 months ago that my channel really started picking up outside of Rex Viper, outside of the nerd, where I could stand on my own without having to rely on talking about AVGN to get decent views. So getting the idea is very hard. I think my little taste for my next video, my next fully produced video, is going to be on Lil Wayne's 2008 album Rebirth, where he tried to make a rock record and it's really bad. So just getting that idea was like worth its weight in gold, because it's like, yes, now I have something to work off of. I have something I can listen to the album. I can make notes. Then I can write a script, shoot it and then edit it, and then bam, so yeah, that's my process, I guess. I think I gave you way more information than what you asked.
No, I had thought about it because I was like, that, he's just talking about topics that interest him just like we are. But because we're speaking extemporaneously and because we can bounce off of one another, and now because we have slobs, we can just throw stuff out there really, every 2 days or something. Whereas Josh has to script edit by himself. And they have to be these like more fully developed videos. And so if he wanted to cover like 50 topics in a year, he couldn't, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I like doing the big videos. It's a lot of work, but it's a
Yeah.
lot of reward when you're done, especially when you see that it's like doing well and resonating with people.
Oh
And they're
yeah.
like, oh my God, I never knew about this, or I never heard about this. Thank you for, showing me this cringy ass, whatever the hell. So yeah, that's
You got a
that's
super chat too in there.
yeah, love the convo. Big Frankie fan, big Josh fan. Maybe this can be a reoccurring segment. I mean, I'd be down for that, but I think Frankie's well, I mean, we're both busy, but I
No
mean,
time.
every now and then,
Yeah, I would do this a few times a year. Sure. Why not?
yeah. Wow. And
Would
then
you fly out to Frankie if he agreed to direct your next music video? So you'd have to fly out like your band and everybody. It'd be a big production.
no, I would
No?
that would be a lot of work missed, a lot of planning.
Right. And what a diva of me to be like, well, I'll direct it, but only here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, you gotta come to my backyard, buddy.
I was there not long ago for Disney. I think I messaged you. I was like, hey,
Yeah, you're like 2 hours away from me at that moment. If
I
I
had
had
COVID,
wanted
though.
to. Yeah, if I
I
had
was
wanted to,
spreading
I
green
could have
mist
driven
all
to
over
you.
Disney World.
Yeah, your COVID. Um, it's not the worst idea in the world though, because like we have milked Jacksonville like dry of like the locations that we know about that are cool. So to shoot in a whole new city where, because I mean, with a music video, it's all about like location. If you have a really cool location, that's doing all the heavy lifting for you. All you have to do is film it and perform at that point.
That's one of my pieces of advice for indie filmmakers is like, one thing you can definitely do just to up production value basically for free, unless you have to pay for locations, is find dynamic, interesting locations. And wherever you live, there's interesting locations. There's something you can be shooting at that will certainly elevate your film past, a white walled apartment or something.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I'm trying to get through these. Blah, 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 blah,
Zachary Attackery, one of our most cynical commenters. Sorry, Zachary, but it's true. The last like 5 times you've commented, you've been like, "Am I supposed to know who these people are?" But he says, and look at it, look, a snarky comment. Does Junt still like doing the YouTube shows? I get the feeling he's kind of tired of it from the last few episodes. No, you're just confusing that with morbid obesity. he enjoys being with his friends. He enjoys making it for sure. In fact, he expressed like, oh, like you guys pod all the time, and I'm just here in my chef costume waiting for you. But no, he loves doing it. Actually, he just gets very tired as the day ticks on. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, look at fucking Boogie 2988, man. That guy can't even barely like get out of a bath. I don't understand how that guy got the fucking surgery on his stomach and he's still. Oh yeah, by the way, I listened to y'all's bit on talking about the documentary, the Boogie documentary, and you said, I think he's 400 pounds. I know 400 pounds when I see it. Well, I watched this financial guy, and Boogie was on his show, and the guy just breaks down Boogie's finances and just basically humiliates him in front of a lot of people. But Boogie does say on the show that I am 400 pounds. So you called it.
Listen, I could do carnivals.
Well, so I started thinking about Junt, and I'm like, well, you spent your whole life with that guy, so I
love him to death. Truly, he's one of my besties. I love him so much. I hope he gets healthy someday.
All right, this one just seems like praising you, or he's from your state.
Frankie, fellow masshole here. Oh, Doug Dig. I found your podcast because of the CineMassacre stuff, and I love it. Not really into the Boxmacker food content. Also found Dances with Ghosts the same way and love it as well. I hear that all the time. It's like, I don't know if I can get into this food content. And then eventually they watch it and they're like, me and my girlfriend just watched 200 episodes of Boxmack in one weekend. We can't get enough of this shit. Junt's the best. So
that's how I was. I was like, I found their AVGN stuff, and I'm like, I was so excited, and I'm like going to their main channel. I'm like, what? This is their main.
What is it everybody has against mac and cheese anyway? Or is it just because there's a really big fat guy and that's weird?
No, it's such for me, like food genres on YouTube is like it's got its whole other corner of like that of the YouTube sphere that like a certain like different kind of people watch that content, just like the video game corner is a different type of people. So I like tend to enjoy like drama / video game videos or informational videos. I tend to like I've never really cared about food videos, and it's just a personal taste for me. I never cared for food videos. So, but then when I watched it, it was like, yeah, you know, the personality shine through, and
To podcasts. It's
yeah,
just a
essentially.
podcast. We're cooking mac while we do it.
Let's see here.
There's a super chat so from Ira. Frankie's thoughts on Scientology.
I just did a I've done several videos about Scientology.
I saw that. Yeah. I didn't actually see the videos, but I saw that you've been doing. I was like, oh, he's getting into Scientology. Abusive cult. Does that sum it up?
That's pretty much the accurate take.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm so like backlogged with the
maybe
comments.
we can do like a rapid fire here. Let's see. Well, OSW, you guys bulk record BoxMac. Yep, we do. We tend to do like 4 of them in a day, or we'll do a couple of unboxings or something. And then I have like a couple months of editing. Must be tiring by episode 3 or 4. Yeah, for John, of course it is. Nina cleans the kitchen typically, and that's why there's a meme where he goes, "Thank you for cleaning the kitchen, Nina." Let's see. Some people talking about they want to lose weight. Gerard's conscience. What do you think happened to Bootsy? Is it true that Mike cucked him? Moving on.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm right where you are now. Finally, in the fucking comments. Because StreamYard supposedly has the free version supposedly has a limit of 2 hours, and it's coming in at 151 right
okay,
now.
well then we should start wrapping it up. But yeah, we have 10 more minutes then in that case. Frankie, I passed around. This is from Bennu in Space. Frankie, I passed around your video from after Kevin Smith got out of the hospital. You guys are really critical of him, but we're really decent in that video. Listen, I am on the, I'm critical of Kevin, yes, because I think he's lost a lot of himself, but I am still on this side of the line of fan. I'll listen to the podcasts. I'll go to the Fathom events when they come out. I'll buy the Blu-rays. I'm interested in the behind the scenes. I think he's like a cautionary tale. Certainly his weed addiction is a cautionary tale, but more than that, I think like there's a guy who didn't expect to go on the ride of his life with all of this celebrity, and he just made a movie, and suddenly he was catapulted into this world that he almost had no business being catapulted in. And I think he traded on his authenticity. For his authenticity was the thing that, much like James Rolfe, that made him as popular as he was, because it was a scarce quality in Hollywood. And then like 20, 30 years ticks by, and I think he lost his authentic self somewhere along the way, especially through the weed. And that's like his authenticity is his thing, and he doesn't know who his authentic self is. And so it's a very existential problem, and one that like I'm not nearly at the same risk of something like that happening. But sometimes, when you do kind of like media, like I'm producing media containing me all the time, and I'm hearing feedback from strangers about who I am, and you can get a little bit confused about like, wait, who am I and what do I think? Especially like in the YouTube sphere, where there's an agree button, and you're shamed for saying the wrong shit or whatever. You can sometimes have to check yourself, be like, am I saying things I believe, or am I saying?
I will say that Clerks, the first Clerks, is the only good Clerks.
Yeah, I like aspects of the other two. I definitely think Clerks 2, people love Clerks 2.
I don't know why.
I think it's kind of a fucked up movie. As like Rosario Dawson is very cringy in it. The thing with his wife is really cringy. I think the dialogue is, I mean, again, there's like moments there, like the Star Wars Lord of the Rings thing is kind of funny. I think that Trevor kid is kind of funny, or Elias in the movie. But generally speaking, I think it's kind of like it rings false a lot.
Yeah, the first one was so authentic, as you were saying, and it's in that grainy black and white and all that, and it just really worked. And then the second one, just from a visual standpoint, was so slick and in color, and I'm just like, whoa, this doesn't look like it. Like the whole like vibe and like the spirit of it was gone just by virtue of that. And then I just felt like the dialogue was so much more cartoonish and quick It wasn't more slow and natural like it would be in real life. I don't know. Anyway,
somebody said Seven Beetle of Doom said, Frankie, is it wrong that I want Kevin Smith to be fat again? He was funny and a good writer back when he was still fat. I think correlation is not causation. I think yes, you can separate fat Kevin and thin Kevin and think about the movies made by both of them. But I think I think that's a categorical error. I think weed and non-weed would probably be a better line to draw. But I also just think there was a kind of a gradient. Like we're talking about Clerks 2 was a little bit of a weird movie. And I think Zack and Miri's a little bit of a weird movie. And bit by bit, I think I would say like after Dogma, things started to get kind of strange. I don't know. You get richer and older, and his voice mattered in the 90s. And then we were no longer in the 90s. But I would say the question was, is it wrong for me to want him to be fat? The answer is yes. It is wrong for you to want somebody to be unhealthy. Like when I was bigger, occasionally people be like, I don't know, I kind of like fat Frankie. And I was like, don't tell me that. That's like saying like, I wish you were a drug addict. It actually is like that.
That'd be like people like, oh, I liked Josh's videos better when he was an alcoholic.
Right. It's like, don't bring that around me.
That's one thing that pisses me off about the weed thing too, is like, these potheads, which I'm not into weed. I get panic attacks anytime I've tried to smoke it, but I don't mind people who smoke weed. Do whatever the fuck you want. But what pisses me off is when, and I've known several people who've done this, who'd be like, they'll be like, Josh, man, like this drinking's unhealthy, man. You need to cut back on it. And then later on in the conversation, oh yeah, man, I'm high like 24 hours of the day. And it's just like, bro, shut the fuck up. Like, we're coping with the human condition in our own unique ways, like you got your way of coping that you think is more like high and mighty. It comes from the earth, man. It's medicinal, whatever you want to say. Like, that's fine, do your thing, but like, don't come at me about addiction. I mean, even like people who have a problem with food, I mean, it's all the same. It's like we're all finding our own way to cope with
I'm getting very tired, I'm going to tell you, Josh, in my life
of
cute arguments. And because I think that there is such a thing as a common sense, an objective path forward. Not always, not in every case, but in many cases. Like the good thing is obviously different from the bad thing. I'll give you an example. There have been times where many years ago, we would plan like a shoot, and John would have like a raid in Guild Wars or something that was scheduled for 3 p.m. And he'd be like, okay, but I have like an appointment at 3 p.m. So we got to be back here. So we'd all be like rushing to finish the shoot to get him back to like his Guild Wars raid at 3 p.m. And I remember like we got in fights over it. I gave him shit where I was like, why is like some video game appointment like more important than being like in the real world shooting like creative work with your friends? And I would get these cute arguments that were like, well, who's to say that video game time is any less valid than creative time? Who's to say that making a film and playing a game, they're both things you enjoy extracurricularly? I was like, just stop it. Just stop telling me, like some things are better for human flourishing and than others. And I become, as I'm getting older, I'm becoming less like patient with thought exercises that go nowhere.
Yeah. Well, it is closing in on 2 hours. I would like to keep talking, but I don't know what StreamYard is going to do once it hits that 2-hour threshold. I don't know if it's just going to abruptly and rudely kick us off. So I will go ahead and spend these last 2 minutes, I guess, signing off, if you will. We've had a consistent like 130 people watching this whole time. That's awesome.
Damn. Yeah. Well, hey, it was great seeing you all. Josh, good idea. Thanks for bringing me on.
Well, is that because we were batting around different things, because like I was always just, I had defaulted to, well, let me just be on your podcast again. And you're like, well, why don't I do something on your channel? It's like, all right, you want to do 10 or 11 angry video game nerd things? You're like, well, yeah.
Trying to be nice about it. Trying to be like,
my Jay Leno.
AVGN.
Yeah, maybe not Jay Leno. Maybe not AVGN. Stay away from that. So I was like, Frankie, I don't know what the fuck to do anymore, man. Like you can just do a live chat, Q&A, whatever. And I mean, obviously you're an easy dude to talk to. You're very good at talking. You can talk fluently without any effort. I'm the same way. So the 2 hours melted away like butter. But
perfect.
Anyway, I know like probably at least half or not more than half of these people watch both of our channels, but if not, Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool to like. I never thought I'd be a part of even the smallest of YouTube communities. I never thought I'd have associations with other channels that are up and coming, you know. So I think it's cool, and you
Yeah,
know,
it was making me realize, I'm like, isn't it funny that YouTube is starting to have echoes of mainstream media where there's kind of a talk show, and like if you appear on a talk show, like you can
yeah,
get like a little bit of new audience, and like it's starting to look that way again.
yeah, for sure. But you can catch Frankie at what is it, Red Cow Arcade? If you just type that in or whatever.
Yep, Red Cow Arcade, and then if you want to see, 20 years of other high effort comedy and filmmaking content, go to Red Cow Entertainment.
All right. Well, we got 4 seconds left. 3. All right. I guess I'm going to end stream now. Good night, everybody. Thank you for hanging out.
Love you
And
all.
does it is it still? I'm just curious to see what happens after 2 hours.
Do we die at this moment?
It says it's still going, but anyway, I'll go ahead and
It's
end it.
good. It's good. Keep them wanting.
Yeah, exactly. All right.